Coming up on The World Today. Historical trial begins in France over the 2015 Paris attacks, which left 130 people dead. Anti-Taliban forces in Afghanistan ask international community not to recognize new Taliban government. Plus, fire sweeps through Indonesia jail, killing 41 people. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin in France, where a historic trial has started over the 2015 Paris attacks, which left 130 people dead. The shooting and bombing assault by Islamic State group extremists was the worst post-World War II attack in France. The only surviving attacker, Salah Abdeslam, is in court with 13 other defendants at a purpose-built facility in Paris. 6 others are being tried in absentia. They are facing charges of murder, complicity and terrorist conspiracy. The trial is being described as the biggest in France's modern history. And over in New Zealand, the government says the country had tried for years to deport the knife-wielding militant who injured 7 people at a mall in Auckland last week. Court documents made public on Sunday named the attacker as Ahmed Samsudeen, a 32-year-old from Sri Lanka. He had arrived in New Zealand 10 years ago on a student visa seeking refugee status, which was granted in 2013. Police shot dead Samsudeen, who had been convicted and imprisoned for about 3 years before being released in July, moments after he launched his stabbing spree. The 32-year-old was inspired by the Islamic State militant group and was being monitored constantly, but could not be kept in prison by law any longer.
Obviously, we are continuing to review the immigration law alongside the terrorism suppression law that's been done. And I'm sure if there are ways that we can improve it, we will. But we also have to bear in mind that throughout the large part of this period, the terrorist was actually in prison. And therefore, the deportation process stopped until that had changed. If we were to change that is a very significant move and would need quite a lot of consideration. So we have at every turn gone to every part of the law. No stone was left unturned. Now that we're in the position we're in now, of course we will continue to look at potential law changes.
Now, 41 prisoners have died after a fire swept through an overcrowded jail near Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. The blaze at Tangerang prison broke out as most of the inmates were asleep. Guards unlocked some cells but had to leave as the fire raged. There were 122 inmates staying in the worst affected Block C, far more than the 40-person capacity. 2 foreign victims, inmates from Portugal and South Africa, are among the dead. Now, barely 24 hours after El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, there's been angry protests, technological glitches, and a plummet in value. The price on Tuesday crashed to its lowest in nearly a month, falling from $52,000 to under $43,000 at one point. Platforms such as Apple and Huawei refused to offer government-backed digital wallet known as Chivo, and sellers had to be pulled offline after they could not keep up with user registrations. In any case, as the day wore on, Chivo began appearing on more platforms and was accepted by the likes of Starbucks and McDonald's. The government has even given citizens $30 each of Bitcoin to encourage its adoption. It says Bitcoin could save the country $400 million a year in transaction fees on funds sent from abroad. However, using data from the World Bank and the government, it's more realistically closer to $170 million. And our Chief Executive Officer at Kari Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu, joins us now for more on this. Mr. Chukwu, a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you, Teniola, for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. Let's begin with your thoughts on the big move by El Salvador and the feasibility of Bitcoin as a legal tender.
I think my first comment is that it's a big boost for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrency. Just like Elon Musk's consistent and adoption of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency had been a major boost to adoption of cryptocurrency. I think El Salvador adopting cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as legal tender could actually open the door for some other economy that are challenged to also adopt Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency as medium of exchange or legal tender. So it's a major boost to adoption of cryptocurrency. The challenges are the wide fluctuations we've seen in the currency in Bitcoin, which you rightly pointed out, I lost about 20% intraday on the first day that El Salvador adopted it. Again, there are also concerns about illicit flow of financial assets using cryptocurrency as a medium. So that the world has not come to terms with how to deal with instances where cryptocurrency has been adopted for illegal purposes or for remittance of funds that are not legitimate or illegal.
You know, there's been a general fall in the price of Bitcoin. What can we credit this to? And could this have contributed to El Salvador's faltering start to the new legal tender?
Well, I think two things that could have contributed to that is one, we observed that there were glitches or technological hiccups that led to the pulling down of Chevo, that is the Bitcoin that El Salvador has adopted. And then subsequently that was restored. And then you had political opposition to the extent that we are demonstrating in front of the parliament and in front of the Supreme Court. The strong oppositions within the country to the adoption of cryptocurrency. And like I did mention earlier, there are concerns about illicit financial flow that this could trigger. Of course, the president of El Salvador is focusing on the fact that billions of dollars that are remitted to their local economy could actually be done more efficiently using Bitcoin at lower cost. And that's why he was talking about $400 million of savings from the transaction cost. But the key thing is that the world is concerned how this will play out, and then there is internal opposition as well as the technological glitches that contributed to the loss in value of that currency on that day. But beyond that, we've always cryptocurrencies, particularly Bitcoin, has witnessed wide gyrations in value over the past couple of months. So that cannot be ruled out from the fact that it will still continue to suffer such gyrations or wide movements in value over the coming weeks.
Back here, though, the Nigerian Central Bank did release a circular earlier this year informing banks and other financial institutions that transactions in cryptocurrencies and facilitating payment for cryptocurrency exchange had been prohibited. What are the risks with Bitcoin that scares governments, causing caution in embracing it?
I think the greatest concern the government or financial regulators globally have had with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is the issue of illicit flow of funds. If you follow these stories about Bitcoin in the past couple of cryptocurrency the past couple of weeks, you'll observe that there are some instances where world central banks, the U.S. central banks, are insisting that some cryptocurrency have to pay back or investigate illicit flow of capital or funds using their medium. So the greatest concern the Central Bank of Nigeria has is that it's possible that cryptocurrency could be used to fund the insurgency we are having in the Northeast or Northwest, and then you could actually be used to acquire arms or other illegitimate transactions, including moving of drug funds. So, and that's the greatest concern, because these currencies are not properly tracked, and you really can't. Sometimes the owner's identity are kind of clouded in some form of secrecy, and that's the concern I think the central bank has.
All right, then, Chief Executive Officer at Cowrie Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu, thank you so much for your thoughts on the program.
My pleasure.
Well, to the situation in Afghanistan now, anti-Taliban forces in the country have asked the international community not to recognize the new government announced by the Islamists on Tuesday. They say the all-male cabinet consisting entirely of Taliban leaders or their associates is illegal. The names announced for the new government includes a man under United Nations sanctions as Prime Minister and another on a United States terrorism list as Interior Minister.
China has welcomed the new Taliban government, calling on them to restore order in Afghanistan. While much of the world has adopted a wait-and-see approach to engagement with the Taliban, China has already said it is ready to build friendly relations with the group following their takeover. Similarly, Pakistan's foreign minister, speaking at a virtual conference that brought together neighbors to discuss Afghan strategy, floated the idea of inviting the new rulers in Kabul to future gatherings.
We all are grappling with a changed reality in Afghanistan. The Taliban have announced formation of a caretaker setup. We have noted this development. We hope that the political situation stabilizes at the earliest, leading to normalcy. The new situation requires discarding old lenses, developing new insights, and proceeding with a realistic and pragmatic approach. At the center of our endeavors must remain the well-being of the Afghan people, who have suffered enormously due to conflict and instability for over 40 years.
The interim cabinet is led by Mullah Mohammed Hassan Akhund, who is on a UN blacklist. Another figure, Sirajunji Haqqani, is wanted by the American FBI. The United States has expressed concern over the track record of people named to top posts, while UN agency has decried the exclusion of women in the interim cabinet. Meanwhile, the European Union says it is ready to continue with emergency aid to Afghanistan, but will keep a close eye on the new Taliban government.
The European Union is ready to continue to offer humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. And I think that the decision of my colleague Jutta Urpilainen to increase the budget for humanitarian assistance for Afghanistan for this year to, if I remember correctly, 200 million.
Afghanistan faces the collapse of basic services and food. Another aid is about to run out. The United Nations said on Tuesday, after the Taliban took control of the country on the 15th of August, and the United States and Western powers withdrew.
Meanwhile, the International Committee of the Red Cross says Afghanistan needs more humanitarian support, stressing that people are suffering from psychological and physical harm.
Reality that our new authorities in Afghanistan, we engage as a humanitarian organization with these authorities as we have in the past more than 3 decades, in order to have an agreement on neutral, impartial and independent humanitarian assistance on the programs that we think are important to move forward, on the modalities for humanitarian assistance and protection work in the future. And in that context, it goes without saying that principled humanitarian work, diversity of teams, independent needs assessment, independent recruitment for us as well as for the Afghan Red Crescent Society. These are all issues which are important. I talk about, of course, the women, the children, the displaced, those detained, those released from detention and suffering from psychological and physical harm. These are all issues which were discussed in our conversations with the authorities, local as well as national, and which will be part of ICRC's hopefully increased and fastened response to the needs in Afghanistan.
Still to come on the program. A 19-year-old pilot reaches Costa Rica in bid for round-the-world record. More details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Today is World Physical Therapy Day, a day observed to generate awareness about the crucial contribution physiotherapists make to society. The day marks the unity and solidarity of the global physiotherapy community. The focus for this year's World PT Day is rehabilitation and long COVID, and the role of physiotherapists in the treatment and management of people affected by long COVID. According to data, 1 in 10 people living with long COVID will exhibit symptoms for a period of 12 weeks or longer. The most common symptoms of long COVID include extreme exhaustion and problems with memory and concentration. Well, joining us now is Chairman, Nigerian Society of Physiotherapists, Delta State Chapter, Dr. Chukwuemeka Ephraim. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
We just mentioned the theme for this year. Help us understand the role of physiotherapy, the role physiotherapy plays in the treatment of long COVID.
Thank you, viewers. Every year, September 8th is set aside to celebrate the World Physiotherapy Day. It's a worldwide event. And this day is set aside, like I said, by the World Confederation for Physical Therapists. It's a day to create more awareness about the role of physiotherapists as members of the healthcare profession. And the theme of this year's celebration is long COVID and rehabilitation. Of course, in helping our viewers to understand the whole topic, it has to do with the fact that post-COVID, after one has suffered COVID-19 and they have been discharged from the hospital, most instances, people don't go back to their normal level of function. The main issue and some of the complaints that they may have include exertion or fatigue, extreme fatigue, though that the World Health Organization has now recognized as an issue that can be classified as a disability because they are not able to go back to work. So we want to throw lights and educate the public on the role physiotherapists play in helping this set of people to get back to optimum function.
Well, it does sound ambiguous discussing physiotherapy and, general health, but there are many gains. As we're beginning to learn, how can we incorporate physiotherapy in our healthcare?
That's a very beautiful question. Physiotherapists are highly trained healthcare professionals. They're already members of the healthcare profession, but you see, they are really, really underappreciated, especially in this part of the world. Diaspora in the US and in Britain, physiotherapists are highly revered and play very key role. But in Nigeria, physiotherapists are playing key role, and even in the fight against COVID-19, physiotherapists have been very, very much involved, rendering chest physiotherapy and certain prescribed individualized exercises to patients. So they've been there. It's just that a day like this affords us the opportunity to actually throw more light on the role we play and to make ourselves more relevant and more involved in the scheme of things.
And finally, just before I let you go, what's the message for members of the community of physiotherapists on this special day?
Thank you for this opportunity. Physiotherapists are key players in the health of every individual throughout the lifespan of an individual, whether as a child, as an infant, as a teenager, as an elderly. Physiotherapists play a key role as movement experts and healthcare professionals that use exercise as a therapeutic measure. Physiotherapists are well trained to help people of all ages in engaging in activities to optimum level and functioning well, improving quality of life. So the message really to all physiotherapists is that they should be part of their profession and they should, continue to play a key role and believe that the government will begin to take the issue of rehabilitation in this country more seriously. That is one area really that the health architecture needs to fine-tune and do a lot more structuring on. So we believe that the elderly, they are a group of people that actually rely so much on physiotherapy. And then COVID, as the team suggests, after COVID, what next? Do they just go home and they just remain at home, not being able to function? So we are saying that such people should see the physiotherapists who can help them with some individualized planned exercises and they'll quickly get back to their full function.
All right, then. Thanks again, Dr. Ephraim, and do stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's take a look at some updates from the COVID-19 pandemic now. The Australian state of New South Wales has reported a jump in COVID-19 cases as vaccinations ramp up. Plus, Austria is to tighten COVID-19 measures for the unvaccinated. Here's the global update.
3/4 of people over the age of 16 in Australia's New South Wales have now had at least their first vaccination dose. The announcement comes as the state also reported its first rise in new infections in 3 days.
I'm incredibly proud of where we're up to, and there's more work to be done, but I'm confident the track we've been on, as difficult as it's been, is starting to bear fruit. Things are starting to change in terms of the trends that we're seeing, and we obviously want to see those trends concerned. So even though we're seeing case numbers very volatile, and as the modelling showed, we're expecting the peak sometime next week, please know that at any stage, if we do something that changes that modelling, if we do something drastic that changes that modelling too soon.
Australia has locked down Sydney and Melbourne, its largest cities, after outbreaks from the highly infectious Delta variant in June. The country now aims to live with rather than eliminate the virus once it achieves its broad vaccine coverage of about 70% of its adult population of 20.6 million, a goal it's expected to reach by early November based on current rates. Speaking of vaccinations, Bangkok has unveiled a mobile vaccination bus aimed at serving seniors, people with disabilities and other chronically ill people in the Thai capital as the country ramps up its inoculation drive amidst a surge in coronavirus infections. Authorities say the aim is to reach people with mobility issues who may have difficulty traveling from their homes. 16.5% of the Thai population has been fully vaccinated, while 38.75% have had their first doses. In Germany, officials say the country could see a massive momentum in new COVID cases in autumn if the vaccination rate does not increase. According to official data, the number of COVID-19 patients requiring hospitalization is increasing, and intensive care bed occupancy by COVID patients has already doubled in the last 2 weeks. And finally, Austria will tighten a range of COVID measures from next Wednesday onwards. However, these will primarily apply only to those who've not been vaccinated. The announcement came amidst rising infection rates and hospitalizations, including in ICUs. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz says the measures, which includes compulsory face masks, would apply to the unvaccinated only in order to protect them and to protect hospitals from becoming overloaded.
And finally on the program, a teen pilot who's seeking to break the world record as the youngest woman to fly solo around the world has touched down in Costa Rica as part of her trek. 19-year-old pilot Zara Rutherford took off from Western Belgium on August the 18th in her Shark Ultralight, the world's fastest microlight aircraft. She's looking to cover 51,000 kilometers in her bid. The British-Belgian flyer hopes her voyage will encourage more girls and women to study and work in STEM and spark girls' interest in aviation. Rutherford's route will take about 3 months with stops in 52 countries where she will stay with local families or in hotels.
Flying into Costa Rica was amazing. It's a really beautiful country. It's a shame I can't stay longer. I wish I could. But yeah, it was interesting. I couldn't talk to anyone on the radio for quite a long time, actually. because there was a mountain in the way. But then, yeah, it's amazing seeing San Jose from the sky, and I was like, yay, I'm landing soon. But yeah, it was good. The cloud is very annoying. I'm not allowed to fly into it. But yeah, so far all of my biggest challenges has been because of low clouds or thunderstorms. So when I have to go around a thunderstorm, or when I can't keep going because of a thunderstorm, those have been pretty challenging things. On the long legs, especially over water, so this was Iceland to Greenland, it was about 4 hours just over water, very low as well. And then you get quite lonely because there's no radio contact, there's nothing, there's nobody there, it's just you and the plane. And then I listen to music and podcasts, but it is something that I wasn't expecting when I started it. And I only realized afterwards, like, oh, you do actually get quite lonely.
What an adventure. We wish her all the best. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shiboale.